Hey everybody, Riot Mort here and back with Riot Kent. Welcome back, Kent. Hope you had a good day off that last time.
Yeah, it was nice. The video was very different without me, wasn't it, more?
It was very old school, very lonely. But we
Yeah.
are back for the 11:20 Post Mortem. This is an interesting one because it is the final Post Mortem, as we usually don't do one for the last patch or the first patch. So this is it. This is the final Reckoning Post Mortem for the final patch. This is where we talk about what worked, what didn't, what we liked, what we didn't, and yeah. So shall we dive right in?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. All right. So right off the bat, I think we have to talk about tactician scouting, Little Legend scouting. I think I would call it so far a very divisive feature. I think like 80 to 90% of people really like it. And then the other like 10 to 20% really don't like it. Like not just it's okay. It's like they really don't like it.
Yeah, I think even on that, I think there's some of like the bugs that contribute to
Yeah.
like people disliking it. I think if it was like completely polished, completely bug free, I think there'd be a smaller percentage of people who don't like it and don't like the gameplay implications that come with it.
Yeah.
I also think there's like some more problems that we can solve in the future, such as like the flipping back and forth thing. We need to make a decision on how we want to tackle that from a
Yep.
gameplay perspective, and then solve that problem too. But I think once we get it like in a really good spot, I think more and more of the population will get
Yeah.
like it because it's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, real talk, like I definitely wish we'd got it to a more polished state before we got it out. And I do think, so there's some accountability there of like the bugs that went out with it. It's interesting though, because it's definitely one of those things where like the more in tune you are with the game, the more the bugs bother you. I think watching a lot of like sort of standard players, it's like they don't even notice the bugs. But man, when you've been playing like 500 games and like something just feels off, it's like, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's like that small lag. You're like, why is that there?
Yeah.
And like you can feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, the worst one for me is the one where you like try to run off your starting area to pick up the
Oh
stimmy,
yeah.
and it pulls you back, and you're like, "Why the fuck is it doing this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But also it's like share. I guess to share it more about it, we kind of talked about this, but it's like it's not fully just a for fun feature. It's mostly a fun feature, but also like, there is additional like, I guess decision and like mind games here where
yeah,
like you're sharing information that you're scouting somebody and you're gaining information that somebody's scouting you, and you also know that they know that you're scouting them.
yep.
It's a lot of like, it's an extra layer there where like you can play around it, and it's actually kind of interesting. And
I,
so like
I agree, but there was a part of me that thought you were going to dive into the. But they know that I know that they know that I know that they know that they're scouting me.
yeah, I mean that's all valid.
Awesome. All right, let's keep going.
All right.
Double Radiant Armory. I think this was just a clear win. I think this actually added a lot more strategic depth. I think the one negative is that it might have pushed some of the like really good carries over the top. I think only a few of them though. A few of the 2 item carries when they get the double radiant. I'm specifically looking at Akshan. Um,
Yep.
but like I think they got kind of pushed over the edge. Um, mostly physical damage ones too. I think Jax actually benefited from this a lot as well. You give him like Radiant Titans, Radiant BT, and it's like, what do you do against that?
Yep. Yep.
But overall, I think it was a positive change. And as far as like our final patch changes, I think this will go down as one of the better ones.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is like not just for a fun change. I think like there are some players who are saying how like this should have been here from the beginning of the set, and like I haven't gone too deep into the implications of that, but like that sounds like it would have been something fun to start with and like good because it gives you more options to play with, and then we balance around units having 2 radiant items basically from there. But like yeah, I think overall like this was really well received. It was really good.
Radiant Blessing. This one I'm a lot less positive on. The 3, crazy drop chance ones, I think are a little extreme, but like they happen so little that it's like it's not a big deal. But I do think this whole chance of getting a high quality drop from 10 to 18%, and I'm the one who put this in, but I'll call it out. I think it was a mistake. I think it made win streaking just like a very hard style to play now because not only do you have the worst items off the carousel, but then you also are like down by a lot of stuff. It could be 2 tomes, it could be a force of nature, it could be 3. It's like, how do you come back from that? And so it requires a lot of really good play. And so 18% of the time, 1 in 5 games, it's just, I think it's overboard. And I think, to be honest, like, if we talk about the stimmy as a permanent feature ever, I think we would have to consider it in a world where, like, a lot of these extreme drops are actually bad.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, like we we made like a comeback mechanic that wasn't too swingy, a little bit too swingy.
Yeah.
In this case.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
even you look at worlds where like Milk got those like 30 gold swings,
Yep.
and
Yep.
imagine if that 30 gold swing had been a triple force of nature swing, or and like we always talk about these changes where we're like, would we be comfortable if this happened at worlds? And this is an example where I'm like, actually no. I actually kind of regret this change.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. All right, on to the balance stuff. A-bomb. It's I think A-bomb was definitely one of the things that benefited from the 2 Radiant items the most.
Yep.
But I still think this change was correct because up until then, no one was playing A-bomb 4 and 5. And now at least A-bomb 4 and 5 are worth it. So like I still think this was a good change.
I agree. I think like A-bomb in general was A-bomb 3 specifically is too strong just because of the multiplicative nature of like you get to double your items. It's really strong, but like 4 and 5, if we didn't buff it, I don't think people would run it. I was watching a lot of the live games I've been playing too, but like A-bomb 4 is actually pretty big of a threat because with this additional like buff. So I think this was good. This is a good change.
The Draconic buffs. This is another one that honestly I think was correct. Like Draconic has always been sort of this like high risk, high reward comp. And the problem was it was high risk, medium reward before. And this very light buff pushed it into like high risk, high reward. I think Draconic is a little overtuned when you hit it, but it still requires hitting it, and it's still sort of that like econ trait that requires a little bit of that luck to go your way and get some of those big eggs. So overall, I'm actually pretty positive on this change.
Yeah, I didn't end up too like wild of like a buff, but I think what we could have done better here is foresee that like more players would be playing this, getting more value out of the eggs, and then hitting Zyro 3 and then giving like a light cap to Zyro 3.
Agree. Forgotten 6 and 8 nerf. I think the Forgotten 6 nerf was correct. I think these were correct, but these are the kind of changes that like don't actually change the meta that much. Most people weren't hitting Forgotten 6, and when they were, it was like, cool, I kind of high rolled. That's fine. So I think this is fine, but I think this is one of those like most players didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I agree. On the same page.
Cool. Ranger, 4 Ranger and 6 Ranger. You and I talked about this one a lot off camera, but the reality is I think Ranger was a mistake from day one, specifically 4 and 6. I think we should have put in different tuning levers, whether it would be duration or damage or whatever we wanted to get creative with. But I think at some point it was just more attack speed, and it was like basically never correct to go for Ranger unless you got like a Ranger spat, and even then you were high rolling.
Yeah, basically, yeah, we talked about it where like, just some like a simple dumb solution that we haven't tested, but it's like, what if instead of the buff lasting 4 seconds, it lasted 6 or 8? Then you have more incentive to go like 6 Ranger. Whereas like at this point, everyone gets max attack speed for 4 seconds, but like you have no real front line or anything. We should have added additional lever a lot earlier on and then tuned around that.
Yep. Sentinel nerf. I think this was fine. I think Sentinel's still good. I think if anything, this showed how kind of OP Sentinel was beforehand. So I still see 3 Sentinel, 3 Skirm do very well in the early game. I still see 6 Sentinel Lucian do pretty decent. Maybe a little underpowered because it's one of the least beneficiaries of the 2 Radiant item, but otherwise, like, it's fine. So overall, I think this was fine.
Yeah, I agree. How much?
Skirmisher buff. So, okay, so this was positive. I think Skirmisher is finally a playable trait now. I think this finally feels like what it is. I think Skirmisher is a really good case study on the pros and cons of the strategy of light taps, right? Because it probably took us, 6 different buffs to get to this point where we're just like,
a lot,
little HP, a little AD, a little more HP, a little more AD. And so it took a long time, like frankly too long for us to get here. But had we gone the other way, there was a risk we overshoot it. You know, if you let's say you do 3 of those buffs all at once, and now it's like whoops, because I think that's what happened in set 5, right? Like set 5, we were over nerfing and over buffing, and so it just again it shows the trade off, right? Like the over buff, over nerf can cause way too much balance thrash. The light tap, light tap, light tap can take too long to get to the desired state.
Right.
So,
yeah, and also just like on this one, I remember we had a discussion before like putting this in, but I was pretty against it because I was afraid of how big this buff was. But it turned out to be great. Like 6 skirmisher early on gives you so much tempo that lets you, you know, streak into 8 or like even 9, and then you go 9 skirmisher, and that can actually be an valid win con, which is finally in a good spot. So
yeah.
Glad we ended up pushing it.
And it's not even an auto win either. Like 9 skirmisher is strong, but you can lose with it.
Yep. But yeah, glad we pushed this through,
cool.
Despite my hesitations.
So, sweet. So I got a win. I'll take a win.
Yeah.
Kled nerf. I'll be honest. Like, so obviously this was good. Kled needed a nerf. This was one where I actually thought we were, like, was I saying it was not enough at the time?
Yeah, you were saying it wasn't enough.
Okay. Because the crazy thing is, I think it wasn't enough, right? Just a little. I think he's still really freaking good.
I think so too, but then it's like no longer the forcible, you know, like free top 4. Sometimes, a lot of times can win type comp. It's like it's much harder to play. You play from a win streak. If you hit a bunch of Kleds early, you get to win, you know, or do well. But it's like that's kind of very situational on your spot in the game.
Yep.
So maybe we didn't go far enough, but I think
it's right on the edge. It's right on the edge. So at least Tristana's better than Kled now.
True.
Vayne, solid. I think Vayne's still good if you have the right items. Feels like what a 1 cost should. Maybe we finally got Vayne right.
I think we're really close to kind of like Kled. Like maybe she's slightly too good from like an advantage angle, but like, you know, we're extremely close. So
cool. Brand buff. You know, I was worried about this buff, and this buff didn't matter. Despite Brand being buffed, Brand is garbage. I mean, like, obviously he's good in stage 2. Obviously he's good in stage 2, and he's okay in stage 3. But, like, I was playing Brand before this patch, and then trying to play Brand after this patch. He cannot keep up with the tempo of the double Radiant item, the greed of Draconic. So it's just, I think for whatever reason, the Dot champion this set didn't have the right comp behind it to buy him enough time. Which is crazy, because this is the first set where it feels like tanks are actually good. But Brand just never held a candle to Cassiopeia.
Yeah, I mean, also we have like end game, we have so much backline access through Heimerdinger auction. Like Lucian can like kind of skip the front line if he's positioned correctly. Just so many ways to like get Brand and kill him, and so he doesn't like. Basically, you can play a good front to back comp, but like so many things skip the front, and so. But yeah, also this patch just became extremely explosive in terms of like power levels a lot of times in the end game. So like Brand, even if you have Brand 3, just often can't keep up with the damage output of everyone else.
Yep. All right, Aphelios nerf, solid. I think Aphelios is still good. Aphelios Akshan's still one of the best comps in the game. Yep. I think this was correct.
Agreed.
Jax, same thing. I think Jax got a slight nudge. He likes double Radiant items. He's a playable champion, likes the skirmisher. Like, Jax is good. Sweet.
Yep. Agree.
Sweet. On the small side, Hellion 6 nerf. Yep. Hellion 6 and 8 nerf. Yep. I still see it do well. Good.
Yep. 8 is no longer OP, but it's still good.
Yep. 6 Spellweaver. Same thing. Good.
Still might be too strong, but good direction.
Yep. I mean, we talk about small changes always being something that shouldn't really change much. So basically, if these didn't change much, good.
Yeah, true.
Callista, same thing. I still see Callista 3s doing pretty well. Good change. Kha'Zix, same thing. I mean, Chug Jug fell off a bit. I see a lot less Chug Jug than I did before. I still play it. Is it good?
It is okay. Like, if you have to be in a good spot for it, and then you can like top 4. So
yeah,
top 3. It can be good. It's also positioning intensive, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Vlad buff, I think this was fine. We might have been able to go a little further, but like Vlad's a good opener now.
Yeah, yep. Especially with the Soraka buff from last time too.
Speaking of which, Soraka, I've seen Soraka comps do well. I know for a while Raditz was playing around with Soraka 3, but overall, like, Soraka seems fine.
Yep. This was a good change, I think. Buff 1, nerf 3.
Yeah. Tristana, this one finally took off, and the data actually shows it. This is early on in the patch. This was one of the few comps I was having luck with. But Tristana looks good in the data finally, and so I think she might be where she's supposed to be. You could debate if this one was necessary or not. I think this one's actually a little debatable, but
given that we nerfed Hellion, I think this is. But then, yeah, like she doesn't play with 6 Hellion anyways. But maybe that's because we nerfed 6 Hellion. So
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, the 4 Cannoneer version is pretty strong.
Yep.
Nocturne buff. I think this was solid. I think Nocturne's fine. It helps him in the early game a little bit. Seems good.
Yeah, it seems like Assassins still kind of struggle a little bit, but there's such like a divisive comp where it's like, yeah, it turns the whole lobby into some other. It just changes the lobby a lot because when Assassins exist, you have to position differently.
Nunu 3 still quite good.
Yeah, maybe still too good, but yeah, Nunu 3 is really good. I also
he's a unique identity.
We might have been able to touch Nunu 2, but yeah.
He's a unique identity. I like him. Draven change seems solid. Draven's quite good. Falls off a cliff though. He still falls off a cliff. You know, he's still way worse than Akshan, but
yeah, but there have been like people itemizing or like optimizing Draven, and I saw a guide on Reddit too, and it's like Draven's getting to be in a really good spot.
Fiddle change, fine.
Yeah,
small change, easy.
I wonder if this contributed much to the like Spellweaver dominance in this patch, where like not dominance, but like it got a lot better. Yeah,
maybe. Akshan. I think this was a change that we didn't go enough on. I think Akshan was a good case where we underestimated how much he would use double Radiant, and he's a little nutty.
I agree. We could have probably nerfed his base stats or something a little bit more too, along with this, because he became really multiplicative and strong.
Yep. Kale, fine change, but could have gone further.
I agree. Yeah, Kale's still kind of struggling, so like this helped, but not enough.
Yeah, Kale actually suffers from the same problem Brand does now. It's just there are not enough good stall comps, and like you said, the backline access, you cannot protect your carries.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen front-loaded Kale do pretty well sometimes if you're the right setup, but just like
but like
compared to the other 5 costs, she is struggling.
Yeah, it's like Kale's good at first ascension, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yep, at first ascension, and then afterwards it's like you ascend 4 times. You expect to just like kind of auto win the fight almost at that point if you didn't grief your positioning, but it's like not hitting as hard as I thought she would be.
Yeah, so. And then Viego 3 buff, fun, good.
Yep.
And Quick as Silver. Quick as Silver, this change made it not the worst Radiant item in the game now. So
yeah.
Hilariously enough, according to our data, the worst is Stone Plate now. So
yeah,
but it's not pretty. I'm about to say the difference between the worst and best in average finish now is so small that like this is about as balanced as the items are ever gonna get. So
yeah, if we like put it on if we zoomed out to a certain amount, it's basically almost a straight line. So it's like that's good.
Yep. So. And that's it. No B patch. I know I saw some complaining about Misfortune, but like overall, nothing. When I checked the data, it was like we could almost get away with not patching in 11.21. Like the balance is really surprisingly good. So
yeah, some things slightly better, slightly worse, but it's like really tight. So
which as I say that out loud, there's at least like a few people that are triggered, like, what? They think it's balanced right now? Can you believe that? But actually, it kind of is. Believe it or not.
You can play basically anything. So we're in a good spot, and then we're about to throw it away in 2 weeks. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for us for the 11.20 patch postmortem. Again, this will be gone for a while. We'll be back with the 11.23 postmortem. Because again, we don't usually do it end of set, start of set. So we'll be back in 6 weeks. As always, let us know if you enjoy these. This would be a good time to discontinue this if you guys don't, or we can keep doing it if you do. So, yeah. All right. that's gonna do it from us. Until then,
Goodbye.
take it easy.